Hey, Mark Clark here, the author of The Problem of God, and the question we're answering today in regard to the major challenges that skeptics ask toward Christianity is the problem of evil and suffering, which we not only feel, but we see the issue of looking around and experiencing awfulness in our lives and saying there can't be an all-loving, all-powerful God. It's been called the rock of atheism, the reason that lots of people don't actually believe in an all-powerful, all-loving God. And so how do we deal with this question? Well, the first thing to understand is it's not really just a Christian problem. It's a problem that everyone has, from atheists to other religions. And so what you need to do is look at the marketplace of ideas and figure out which idea actually answers this question the best, or something that's most logical with your experience and history and so on. And so if you look at the different views of New Age philosophy or different Eastern philosophies, you might say, well, I believe in karma. I don't like the answer that Christianity gives, so I believe in karma. But karma is a really bad answer to this question, because it really, I remember landing in a country and I was going around trying to help. There was a group of us going, and there was a woman there, and she was sitting on the ground and she was suffering. She had a baby, she had one arm, and she was begging. And our guide said, don't help her, don't give her money, because the cycle of karma needs to do its thing and actually repay her for whatever evil she did in a past life. So don't resolve her suffering at all, because she has to pay for it. And if we resolve it now, she'll have to live another life. Well, that's obviously a terrible response to evil and suffering. And so we got to look at the world and say, are these actually good ideas? Atheism doesn't have a great answer. And one of the reasons that Christianity would say that it has a better answer is because actually the problem of evil and suffering, as many scholars and philosophers have pointed out, actually points to the existence of God, not away from him. And what I mean is, if you say something is evil categorically, if you say that is suffering categorically, the question that follows that is, where did you get that category called evil to which you're putting God on trial? If you say murder is wrong or rape is wrong, who actually told you that? You need an objective moral value system to tell you that something is definitively evil. It couldn't come about simply through animalistic instincts, because there's lots of things you would deduce about the world that you would never say, well, that's evil, if we were just animals and all of our cognitive faculties were developed only through animalistic instincts. For instance, praying mantises, after the female's done having sex with the male and she's done with him, rips his head off. Well, that over time would just become part of our moral construct. When you see animals and you see a lion eats a zebra, well, he doesn't murder a zebra, he just kills a zebra. And so what we begin to realize is, at what point did we get this almost transcendent, supernatural, moralistic category called evil and called suffering, by which we look around and say our fellow creatures? Because if we were just animals, when you eliminate those creatures through mass death, it's kind of not actually always a bad thing, because now you're just eliminating people who are your competition for food and for the duplication of your own genes. And so what we begin to recognize is somewhere along the line we have a moral category, and that actually points toward the existence of God. And I think Christianity in the marketplace of ideas gives the best answer. That it's not always an answer to every single moment of evil and suffering that we see. In fact, in the Bible, the answer that the book of Job gives, which is a book about this question, is at the end, God comes and he puts Job on trial and says, how small are you? For 4 chapters, he just labels him with questions and says, where were you when I created the universe? Where were you? Don't you recognize that I have a plan here? And I think that you and I, Alvin Plantinga pointed this out. He said, when we look at the problem of evil and suffering and think that we should understand what the reasons are for suffering, we begin to kind of go into a category that's not really appropriate. For instance, he said, if I looked into a tent and I said there was no St. Bernard dog, I'd probably be right in saying, well, there's no dog. But if I looked into a tent and I said that there's no no-see-ums, which are these small bugs that you can't actually see with the human eye, I wouldn't be right, because there might actually be a million in there and I just can't see them. So Plantinga says, when it comes to the problem of evil and suffering, why do we think that it's more like a St. Bernard than a no-see-um? Maybe we can't understand everything. Maybe we're so limited in our capacity as human beings, as philosophers have said for thousands of years, that we might not be able to understand the reasons behind everything that happens. But of course, Christianity says Jesus came and he entered into our pain and he took on our suffering and evil himself. And among the marketplace of ideas, even though Christianity doesn't give every answer and meaning to every problem, it does say that God cares. He didn't stay distant. He entered in so that he could walk with us through it.